Hello everyone. Thank you for coming to the virtual presentation for Online Teaching Conference. I'm glad to have you here along with the thousands of you that I know have already viewed this presentation. I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint and we'll get started with the conversation. So if you hold on just a moment. Here we go. Okay. As you can see, this is a virtual presentation for the Online Teaching Conference for 2014. And we are happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. And the name of this presentation is Who Should Succeed in Online Courses? I know that sounds kind of mean, but there is something that should be talking about with who should succeed in online courses. My name is Larry Lambert. I am the Southwestern College Distance Education Coordinator. My working title is Online Instructional Support Specialist. Nobody seems to know what that is, so I changed it to this and everybody seems to get on board with me. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to your online adventure. Let's get started and we'll talk about a high-level view of what happens with preparation for students and how to make sure that everybody succeeds in online courses. We're going to talk about 5 different sections today: preparedness, colleges and their input, students and how to understand when and when they're not succeeding, symptoms, what should you look for, and then we're going to talk about how to fix it. Everything below in the text boxes are just some of the things, some of the subjects that we're going to talk about. So thank you for being here. First of all, I'd like to switch things for just a moment and talk about the changing paradigm, because this gives everything that we're going to talk about a basis for understanding and awareness for what's happening. The changing paradigm with teaching in online courses is that students over the past 10 years have learned how to understand and take their knowledge with them instead of just being listeners and sponges to absorb all of the information. Students no longer consider faculty to be the nexus of their learning abilities. What happens now is that the faculty is up in front of the class, or it's in the online class, and he or she will lecture and give their information that the students need to know. Now, students are going to take that information, and they're more active with it now. They will take that information, they will go to the internet, and the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to prove it, or they're going to disprove it. After they do that, hopefully they're going to prove it as being correct. Then they're going to take that information, roll it up, and make it relevant for them, and make it current for them, and adjust it to how it perceives in their own life and how they can use it in their own life currently. They have to have an interest in it. They can get this information in a heartbeat. They're used to learning now with instantaneous information, instantaneous feedback, and instantaneous movement forward. So students are conditioned to be now active in their learning, and they prefer the delivery to be the same. There was a gentleman by the name of Michael Wesch, who is the Associate Professor of Anthropology, I believe at Kansas. You'll see his information come up later on. And he did a survey with his face-to-face class, and he found out several different things. One of them being that students discard the information that they read in textbooks, and normally they read only about 20% of the textbooks and of the information that's asked for them to do with and from the faculty. Students really work and learn differently now. They need to be more active, and so faculty and everybody else that's working with the online programs need to understand that and become more active themselves. As we say, there's always a target to shoot for. None of your information that you give or that you do in preparation, retention, and transfer is going to not be a slam dunk. You've always got someplace to apply all of the knowledge that you have. Right now in California, the Chancellor's Office has a real focus on retention, persistence, and transfer students. So you're going to see, those of you that are in California are going to see a new emphasis coming down from the Chancellor's Office if you haven't seen that already. So hang in there because it gets better. Now, currently, the way the state of online learning is that the scales are tipped definitely in the fact that students and faculty are both unprepared. What we want to do and what you want to do is to tip that scale back to students and faculty being prepared. Being prepared almost singularly are going to increase your retention, your persistence, and your transfer rates and the success of your students by 60 to 70%. They must be prepared. There's so many schools and institutions that don't have these people prepared. So let's talk about preparedness to start. Okay? We're talking about student preparedness and faculty preparedness. On students, one of the ideas that we have is that when students register and never send a welcome email, this is going to guarantee the students and faculty will not be prepared. With faculty, if you give an untrained faculty one or more online courses that begin in less than a week. I've been involved in online learning and started the online learning program at this college in 2000. And one of the stories that I tell all the time that's a good illustration of this is that we have a faculty that was given three online classes at the same time. And it was given only a weekend before she was to teach them. So she had to be ready to teach and to begin teaching 3 online classes by the end of the week. So we got emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, capitalized, full of obscenities, and she wanted to kill herself probably a dozen times before that Monday came. And so we managed to help her, but this is what you can do. If you want to give faculty a hard time, give an untrained faculty 1 or more online classes that begin within a week. The other thing for students is never conduct a campus or online orientation prior to the start of the term. You want to make sure that students don't understand anything that goes on, and when they get into an online class, they're going to sit back and expect people to come in and help them, and they're not going to do much. Then you can count on having that happen if you don't give them a campus or some kind of an orientation. For faculty, here's another one. Don't assign an adjunct faculty to an online course until 3 days prior to the class start. The top one up here, give an untrained faculty 1 or more online classes, is for full-time faculty that's even experienced with this. With an adjunct, give them, they're already unfamiliar with your processes. They're unfamiliar with your campus. They're unfamiliar with your college and your institution. So if you assign them an online course 3 days prior to the class start, it's going to be problems. Now, back over here to students, never open online classes early. Faculty normally, by contract, do not have to open up their classes, face-to-face classes, until the first day of the scheduled time of the class of the term. Online faculty have that same option. But what I found here in this school and in colleges all across the country is that by opening up an online class a few days to a week early, will allow students to get a lay of the land. It's going to allow students to be more familiar with the technology and everything that goes on with it. So you want to be careful and give them that. Now, back to faculty. Now, make sure your department chair or dean doesn't explain expectations for teaching online prior to the start of the online class. It's so important for faculty, adjunct or full-time, experienced or not, to have a full orientation and an adjustment so that when they get into the classroom, they look and act like the professionals they are. Also, here's a big one for students over here, is if you want to guarantee that students are not prepared, then do not check for students' computer literacy. Don't ask, don't even attempt to do it, because this is going to play a big part on whether they're going to succeed in that class or not. Now, the big one for both of them is never give college resource information for help and technical support. If they don't know, if both groups, the faculty and students, don't understand where to go to get help and to get resources in order to make them feel better that they have more support, then they're guaranteed not to be prepared. And as an overall statement, take all of these things that we're talking about here and do an overall statement. This is a one word, 2 words that's going to guarantee that they're not going to be prepared. Just ignore them. Best thing to do if you don't want them prepared. Now, let's talk more about preparedness. How can we become more prepared before we start the fight, before we get into the middle of doing the adventure, which is called online learning. So, on-campus and online orientations with evaluations. Now, the evaluations only need to be really for the process, because you don't need to evaluate the people who are involved, but just the process, and let them understand and expose some of the holes in learning and understanding that they may have. College website questionnaire. This is for potential students so that they know what they're getting into by the time they get to the class. They don't have a preset and wrong perception of what it's going to be like in your online class. Bring in your college counselors and do an evaluation as part of the education plan. Students and faculty both need to understand what is the best way to get into this new environment and be clear and be comforted and supported. Another good idea is to have, for preparedness, is that have a first day and online activity. Have them introduce themselves, have them contact you, have them do something that's active. Use things like the video that we're doing here is active. So you're seeing me and I'm seeing you. I don't think anybody believes that, but you see me, so we have a face to identify with the information, and it's active, moving around. Faculty interviews is a good thing to do. Have faculty talk to their online students prior to starting the term, so they get a good idea of what the student is like, and they get a good idea of what their personalities and their character is. Prepare them to understand more of what they're getting themselves into. And video or document training is great to have for preparedness because students can do it on their own from different computers, and make sure that your orientation and your training is up to date. Preparedness is really important for this. So let's go a little bit more with preparedness and talk about students need to be evaluated for online readiness and online ability. Those are 2 very important things, readiness and ability. Some students don't have the aptitude to teach online. So here's some things that can work with these self-assessments, and some of the question types include some of the ones here. What is their learning preference? Oral, verbal, text, visual, or tactile, kinesthetic? Here is a diagram of social and solitary learners and how they can use this information, how faculty can use this information to make sure that the learning is going to be appropriate. Cognitive style, are students really aware of how they learn and what their own limited abilities are? It's going to be really important to understand what their cognitive style is, their awareness of how they learn. What's their motivation? What's their technical abilities? This is another big one. Technical abilities is going to determine whether you're going to have an easier or possibly a harder time, because you teaching, being a faculty teaching students technical is just not something that you want to be drugged down with. You want to get your support and your resources to do this for you. We have a mandatory class preparation, a one-credit class preparation for our students in order to be prepared for online learning. Study habits. What are their study habits and organizational skills? You know as well as I do that in order to be a successful online student, then you need to be self-organized, self-motivated, and have an idea of how you're going to conduct your class and learn in your class without being monitored by anybody standing over your shoulder. Study habits, literacy competencies, the online class that they're in, they need to be able to struggle with the learning, not struggle with the technology. So we want them to understand that the class that they're in, if they're supposed to be there, have they really prepared themselves to understand and learn the information that's there. Social interactions, a lot of students take online courses because they're not social students. But a lot of them that do take it because they are social, what they want is to reproduce that social time inside of your class. So you do that by being dynamic. Faculty need to have constant contact and make sure that it's an active class. Personal information, find out something about your students, and that way you even prepare them more for what's going on. And the Americans with Disabilities Act is another very important piece of the puzzle to learn so that you can make sure that your differentially abled students have some kind of help and resources. Now, here's what we talked about with preparedness. Students need preparedness in 4 different areas. Technology, so they don't have to relearn the system. Cognitive sense, make sure that they're aware and understand how they learn. Confidence using the learning management system, so you open up the class early. They need to get help and support, because without preparing for online learning, the program quality will never rise to its level of expectation and never rise to its level of quality. Faculty need to be prepared by transferring their traditional teaching skills from face-to-face over to online learning. Faculty are professionals at delivery and understanding their audience and being able to move the information from their own head, their own knowledge, into their students. Let's talk about colleges and what is their part in making sure that students and everybody's prepared, and what part do they play in making sure there's success in online learning. This is what happens with colleges a lot of the time. I know it because it's happened here at mine, and we're trying to overcome that now. Online falls under the radar. It lacks administrative support because it's under the radar. A lot of people won't even know where the online learning support department or the online learning center is. What we found here is that a lot of colleges here in California will fall behind in their federal and state mandates for FERPA, for regular and effective contact, accreditation standards, and also there's another one, they fall behind in their chancellor's mandates that come down that really maybe might not be law, but I would advise paying attention to them. So work with counselors. This is where their big part is, to help find out and identify online at-risk students. What do I do? What do colleges do? What should they do in order to make sure that online learning is a success? Online courses inherently present students with barriers. The first one, and I talked about this before, was technical skills. The other one was organizational skills. And communication style, which is blended and multifaceted array of language and cultural awareness. Something that's thought about briefly but not really built into the educational plan, is that culture and awareness have a completely different base of knowledge and base of understanding with students from other cultures than the one that you're in or that you grew up in. They have an unclear pathway to the starting line. Students will say, I'm in a class, an online class, where do I go? Well, they should have already known that, and online courses presents that as a interesting conundrum because students want to be led to the water. LMS awareness, they don't know what they're getting into. They've never seen an LMS, learning management system. Registration is from a distance, so if they have questions or anything, they have to depend on either the telephone and email or some other way of getting that help without having to come to campus. A lot of your students are not anywhere near your campus. And cognitive awareness. They're going into a different learning paradigm, and so they need to understand how that's going to work for them and how it's going to help them. Colleges sometimes just don't get it. Falls under the radar, like we talked about before. They're lacking in administrative support. Now, by lacking in administrative support, it means that it's just another case of unawareness. They don't know how and what they're supposed to do because it's not facing them every single day. Another big one is the general lack of funding. Since the online learning projects and departments are, let's say, in the shadows, then whenever they have the budget meetings and things, then they're very rarely thought of unless somebody is actually at that meeting and pushes constantly in order to get this taken care of. And as we talked about before, the colleges will fall far behind in their state mandates, and then bam, it jumps up and sees them, and you're off and running to the races, and you try to get caught up with sometimes years of these issues, and now all of a sudden they have to all be done right now. So here's the summary for colleges. Everything with online learning is a challenge for colleges and universities. Everything is. The barriers to an online learning pathway begin at the institution's front door, and I would even venture to say begins far before that front door. As soon as they access your college website, that's when it begins. Because if a student doesn't like what they see, all they have to do to go to a different college now is to go to a different website, and they can be enrolled in minutes instead of days. Institutions inherently have a collective brain vacuum with online learning. It's a virtual environment, and again, it seldom makes it above the radar so they can keep track and see what's going on. Institutions are mostly understaffed in online learning, and it's difficult to get enough people that translate into resources for your online learning departments. And institutions are savagely surprised when they find out that they're far behind in this, and now all of a sudden everything happens to happen at once. So you need good management people and good advisory and good resources people in your online learning department. Okay, now let's move over and let's talk about students for just a moment, and students who should just not be in online classes. Some of them don't have the aptitude for it, and some of them are just too unprepared. So let's talk about it a little bit. If you've heard of MOOCs, Massive Online Open Courses, they have a 90% drop rate. And why do they have that? Because there's so many students in their classes that it's so easy to just pop out of that because nobody's holding them accountable really for anything. So what if they don't pass it? There are now 7.1 million online students, and that was just last year. So I think with the way that online is growing, then that number is coming way up. Now, the other part to this is that students drop out of online classes 15 to 20% more than they do in face-to-face classes. Now, what does this mean? If you take an overall look, a top-down look at this, the information that's given is the same as face-to-face classes. You have good professional students. You have really good and professional faculty who are teaching these students, basically using the same skill and professionalism as they do in face-to-face classes. So what's the issue? For me, I think it's the issue that we've just been over, which is preparedness and the unaware, the vacuum that online learning has. You've got to make sure that they're prepared to go the whole distance in online learning, not just to start and to go to midterm, but to go to the whole distance. So technology, students drop online classes for these reasons. Technology. The learning environment needs to be more personalized. There's not enough support. Faculty are not contacting them enough. They also have program-related reasons. They're not happy with the kind of information that goes on or that's given to them in their program. There's a lack of one-to-one interaction with instructors and students, and it's too difficult. Students' perception of online classes are changed almost immediately as soon as the first announcement arrives. Job-related reasons. Job responsibilities change during the course. Their life gets in the way. Most of the online students are taking online courses because their lifestyle dictates that they can actually go to school. We did a survey here and found out, we did a survey here and found out that 25% of our online students are taking online classes because it allows them to go to school. Allows them to go to school. If they weren't taking online classes, they wouldn't be in school at all. So it has its worth, it has its value. But they find out that job-related reasons can interfere with their learning. And also for personal reasons. Essentially, life gets in the way. And so they will drop. Well, that's part of the preparation, is that they understand what's involved so they can adjust their life and make the decision whether they will take an online class or not. Students think online is easier. I hear that all the time with what I do. They think that online is going to be easy, so they take it and find out it's as much work or more than face-to-face classes. So they're surprised, they have nobody to support them, and away they go. Not all students are going to learn with online classes. The aptitude is just not there. They just don't learn well from a distance. You need to find those students and direct them to face-to-face classes or more traditional classrooms. There's always smaller rocks that happen with students that is going to allow you to understand what the problem is. The summary slide now for this, the summary of this is that students have the misconception that online learning is easier than traditional classrooms. Some students don't have the aptitude, they're not prepared, they don't have the skill level to participate in online classes. Drop rates are high over face-to-face programs, and unless students work hard to avoid those top 4 reasons, then they're going to drop out. And distance education is designed to be an alternative method to traditional classrooms. It's not designed to be a silver bullet or a placebo. It's not designed to replace face-to-face traditional classrooms. It's never going to do that. Now, here's some of the symptoms that we talked about, or that we're going to talk about with being able to determine whether students are prepared or not. Personal, job, program, and technology-related reasons. This is the 4 reasons why online students drop their classes. Some of the symptoms are they're not participating. If they're not participating, then the dynamicism of the class is too threatening for them. It isn't as comfortable as it really needs to be for them. They don't know of any way to solve the problems. It's not evident. The road to solving problems and getting support is just not there for them. They have little communication, if any, which means that they're basically lurking in the background, and they're probably going to drop soon afterwards unless you can pay attention as a faculty to them, or the college needs to pay attention to them as well and work together collaboratively in order to fix the problem. The other symptom is erratic activity. Students who are struggling will have whiplash effect. They'll come in and participate manically in the online class for a short time, and then they'll disappear for a long time. And they'll come back in and participate again quickly to try to get caught up and go back and forth, and that's a symptom of problems. Okay? Some of the other ones are discussion boards. Discussion boards are commonly used to create a dynamic classroom, even though discussion boards are starting to be outdated, and there are so many other programs and software that can make the class more dynamic. So students are using discussion boards for a purpose other than the discussion board. That means there's something going on, and you can read that here in the slide. Even if you have created a student forum to discuss class topics, if a student is struggling with concept, then this is a cue for faculty to jump in and record what's going on. Make sure they understand where this progression is going, and then change the way that the discussion board works and make sure that everybody's involved. If a student is struggling with a concept and they're leading other students down the wrong path, it means that they're complaining. They're talking more about the problems of the class rather than having the discussion going in the right direction. This is an opportunity for faculty to come in and help direct them. I mean, it's not a downwards thing. It's not an endless spiral, but it just gives the opportunity for faculty to come in and really take charge of the discussion boards. Okay, now here's a graph that I have that talks about the difference of failing students between traditional and online students. I'm not going to go over this whole thing because I want to be careful with time. But if you look at the traditional students and find out what is happening with the online students, this PowerPoint is going to be available and archived. And of course, you're looking at it now, so you can stop it here and write these down, or you can continue. I really don't want to go over all of these, but some of them are. The one that I like the most is the one that's right in the middle, and it's about being argumentative. If students are argumentative in a traditional classroom, then they have more in online areas. They have more than a standard number of complaints and gripes, a lot about things that are group-oriented, like journals, wikis, and discussion boards. And so what happens there is that this means that they're not happy. A good way to think about this is that if it's an unreasonable response to a reasonable situation, then something else is driving it. Look beyond what seems to be obvious as far as distractive behavior that's inside of your course. Now, for symptoms, here's what you should look for as a faculty, or even as a college, even as a director, even as a dean, even as a vice president. Symptomatic behavior of traditional learning students at risk are similar to online students. They just come in a different form. They come in a different pathway. Looking for lagging participation, look for little communication, less involvement, and spotty attendance in the course. Students need to understand exactly where the line is drawn for them to lose the class. In other words, they're being pulled out for lack of activity. Students drop for 4 main reasons: personal, job-related, program-related, and technology. Just to leave it there for a second. Technology, all these reasons are the 4 main categories, and we did talk about that. Now we've got to fix it. So what are we going to do? Regular and effective contact. Coming down from the faculty, that's really important. Regular and effective contact. The rules say that colleges need to create online classes, and especially the contact between faculty and students in a parallel pathway for online courses. So the contact and the interaction that faculty have with traditional classrooms need to be the same as it is in online classes. And here in California, the State Chancellor's Office is coming down pretty hard on making sure this happens because they want to improve that retention rate. Faculty training and evaluation is coming up to be a mandatory point. Faculty, because I have been one for 15 years at my previous college, we finish our degrees and we start teaching, and we teach for a long time. And so training for us to learn something new can be a little uncomfortable. So we need to find a way to do that. But the mandatory training to make sure that the quality of your instruction really comes through in online classes, the same as it does for your face-to-face ones. Online course curriculum, your curriculum committees, your academic sense, and everybody else that has to do with creating the online environment, your instructional support, need to develop online course curriculum that makes sense for students. It needs to be organized and built differently than it is for traditional classroom students. Your resources have to be many and multifaceted: websites, phone contact, chat, do-it-yourself kind of resources to appeal to all kinds of learners. Student value. Online students need to be considered to be extremely valuable because your students can be from all across not only the state, but the world, the nation that you're in. And so their value is the fact that they're operating immediately in a different world than where you are in a traditional classroom. And college administrators really need to pay attention. You need to, as a program director or as a dean or a faculty coordinator or an online distance coordinator, you need to go out there and make it a point to tell your administrators everything that you're doing so that they understand and they'll keep you in the front of their mind. That's important to do. Okay? Now, the other ones that we have here, and I'll go across these fairly quickly. Mandatory prep classes. Students need to be on very much of a similar line, a similar platform of knowledge when they enter into an online class. And I talked about this, make a parallel universe with online classes. This is a state mandated. You need to know your students' limitations, how to tell when they're unprepared, offer something, a pathway, a barrier-free pathway, so that they can be prepared and learn. Offer them surveys, lots of surveys with short questions, short surveys that give you a lot of information, because online allows students to be much more brave because of the anonymity. So give them a survey and ask them what they think. I think they're going to let you know. DSS students, pay particular attention that your DSS students are working well in your online classes because they're the underrepresented body of learners that we have, and they're the ones that need a little bit of extra understanding and hope and hand-holding because they are differentially able in some way. Also, your college mission, pay attention to that. Goals, stylize all of your online learning efforts with these in mind, college mission and goals. Tie them closely to all of this. Training is important, support, and then you meaning faculty, administrators, are right here and supporting the rest of it. Now, you also need to find out what technology are they using, students and faculty. Are they using mobile devices? Are they using tablets? Are they going to be using PCs? Are their internet connections strong? Are their PCs working? Are they old? Online faculty must be trained to transfer their skills from their traditional classrooms to online, and that takes a little bit of time. And those of you who are in the training mode on this, it needs to be done with great sensitivity to who your audience is. The curriculum must align, and state is mandated, it must align with your mission and goals, and that's really important to have. And finally, down here at the bottom, regular and effective contact is even now more important, because they find that one of the top reasons why students drop out of those 4 categories are because they feel isolated, and they feel that they're the only one who's suffering with some of the problems with technology in any one of these 4 categories. So that contact, regular and effective contact, is just really, really important. Now, to fix this, summary slide, here we are. Find out what your students' technology is. Do they have the aptitude? Are they working on reliable technology? If not, do they have a way to get to reliable technology? They must become familiar with the technology. That includes the learning management system. Online faculty need to be trained. Find out what your students' skill levels are by giving quick no credit tests, or maybe 1 point, 2 points. Surveys, have them perform activities that will test their skills in your class. Online courses must have the same quality, if not more, than traditional classes. The institution is always a part of the solution of what we've been talking about, not just the faculty. You can't lay some of the issues with the online learning at the feet of faculty. They have to be provided with the tools and with the resources in order to make this work. And finally, you need to make sure that your distance ed program is on the forefront of everything the college does. Have people on the committees, participating in the Senate, working on the budgets, inside the curriculum committees, inside the technology committees, in order to make it work. Now, here are just some reasons or some resources for some contemplation here in the future. Here's some ideas that you can go to, or some places that you can go to get some really good ideas like this. Chronicle of Higher Ed. And here is Dr. Michael Wesch. His program right here with the YouTube is so important. I really suggest that you, or encourage those of you who want to see what the learning is now, to take time to go to this website and listen to this 1 hour and 6-minute program. Also, the Sloan Consortium has a great way of giving you some great information. It's kind of dry, but at least it's great information in short bursts. Faculty Focus on Higher Ed Strategies through Faculty Focus, a good article to read. And believe it or not, Oregon State University has got some great online help and resources. So let's answer the question. Who really should succeed in online courses? But first, I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being here and watching what's going on. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me at Southwestern College with the information that's right here on the screen. And this is coming up in just a moment so that you can take advantage of this. But let's answer the question. Who really should be succeeding in online courses? Every single student. So this concludes the virtual presentation. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to leave this slide up until the recording stops, just for you to be able to get this information and use it. I would love to hear your feedback. I would really encourage you to contact me if you have questions. I hope you appreciated what was going on today, and I hope the rest of the time is great for you. I hope you enjoy the online teaching conference for this year, and beautiful San Diego if you come down here. So long, and have a great summer. Bye-bye.